What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Praying and Slaying podcast. My name is Aaron, your host, and today we have Quentin Owen coming on the podcast to talk about not only his first buck with a bow, but also his first buck with a bow that he happened to get from a saddle. I'm kind of new to the saddle hunting game. Haven't got a deer out of a saddle yet, so super excited to hear about Quentin's story, maybe learn some tips and tactics that worked for him to get it done, and just hear an awesome deer story from a guy who's just as pumped about getting his first buck. And that's always a great feeling. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and jump in with Quentin and hear the story of his first buck with a bow out of a saddle. All right, man. Well, Quentin, welcome to the Praying and Slaying podcast, man. It's good to have you. And as luck would have it, you got your buck back today. So even cooler, we're recording the story and you've got the antlers back in your hands to feel it and touch it while you're telling the story.
Yeah, it's that was pretty cool how that lined up. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, very cool. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I see you got a City of Lafayette shirt on. You a city employee or?
Yes, sir. I am a public utilities employee.
Very cool, man. Well, what do you do for public utilities? I had a job just out of high school. I worked for the city of Waukee back in Iowa, and I was public works on my end. So we kind of did a little bit of everything. Worked in streets department, wastewater department, you name it. We kind of just dabbled all over.
Yeah, I'm in collections, which is sewer. But we're a smaller, smaller community. So if they need you to go help street department or parks department or something of that nature, it's not unlike them for to be like, hey, go over here and help these guys for the day or for a couple hours. So, but mainly I'm in collections.
Okay. Very cool. What's a day in the life of that look like?
Uh, Funny story. It just depends. We recently got uh, a new supervisor, and then another guy stepped up to be a new assistant supervisor, and we're still trying to work everything in and trying to figure out ropes and how everything's going to be, going forward. We've had the same supervisor. I've had the same supervisor since I've been there, but he's been with the city or was with the city for over 30 years. So how he ran things and how other people run things might not be the same. So everybody's trying to adjust right now.
100%. I know the feeling, especially in the public works jobs, man. That's everybody's got their own way of doing things, and people stay there a long time too. So when something finally does
Yeah,
move, it's a big move.
yeah, for sure. Uh, Honestly, right now it's more of a we're trying to. I'm not gonna say he left a mess, but we're trying to clean up the mess from how things were ran. And he was a kind of a pack rat, so we've got tools and whatnot from the 70s that no one even knows what they go to.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you need to have like an antique sale or something for the city.
Yeah, you
That'd be
could,
cool.
you could.
Very cool, man. Well, tell us a little bit about you a family man or what you got going on in that world.
Yes, sir. Uh, I've been married to my wife for 2025, so we've been married almost 4 5 years, 4 years,
Awesome.
somewhere in the area. I'm terrible with time, but we've got 5 children together.
Very cool.
Um, Beautiful, healthy children. We've actually just added, hopefully, our last baby girl.
Okay.
Yep,
Congratulations
she's
on that,
fresh.
man.
She's just a little over 3 months old.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah,
Very, very
yeah.
cool.
Thank you.
Heck, and does that make number six or is that number five?
That's number five. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
That's
you
where I'm
got,
trying to draw the line.
yeah, enough to fill one hand. That's good, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I got a basketball team.
Yeah, there you go, man. That's awesome. Very cool. Congrats on that. We got our second one will be due here January 31st. So we're gonna be adding to ours as well here pretty quick. So
That's amazing.
yeah, definitely a cool thing. Got another little boy coming. So my
Yeah, we
other ones,
definitely
he's no, yeah, my other one, he'll be turning 4 in February. So right after the other one's due, and he's already telling me that basically he's got someone to help beat up on dad. So he's excited about that. So
Yeah, we had we when me and my wife got together, we definitely thought there was going to be some hardships. And it turned out that our children were just wonderful together and loved each other from day one. And so we've got an 8-year-old, 7-year-old twins, boy and girl, and then a 6-year-old, and now we've got our baby. And so the four are kind of stacked up in ages where they're all pretty close, pretty tight. Uh,
yeah,
it's something cool to look at. I kind of wish I'd have had that with my siblings, like they get to have. But we definitely had our hardships with we know we both knew that we wanted a baby,
Hmm.
and we went through some struggles with that, and we just prayed about it uh, before we even started really considering. We found a church that we started calling home, and we just started praying about it, and we didn't have the best outcome the first go around, and that was definitely, it was hard on me, but it was definitely harder on my wife than anybody, and we got through that, and then we found out we were having our baby girl, and it was kind of a nerve wreck the whole time, thinking, what if something goes wrong, but everything worked out just wonderful.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations on that. That's definitely tough, dude. We tried for 3.5, almost 4 years, I think, for our first one, and it was just like you said, just thing after thing, and try after try, and it was just like, okay, at a certain point, but like you said, just keeping praying the whole time and trusting God's timing on it all, and then whatever, and then yeah, the day it happened, the day we found out that she was pregnant, we're like, holy cow! But it was like we've been trying so long, you kind of just like hold your breath the whole way through it, and
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
one day at a time through the whole process, and then he gets here, and he's an awesome, just rambunctious little man, and it's cool to have him in our lives. And this other one, like she's in her doctorate program right now for the Air Force, getting her nurse practitioner degree. So we were like, okay, no babies during this window, where we'll try when you get done with that and graduate and all that. And then
Yeah.
this one just just happened. So we're like, okay, crazy. So yeah, just it's crazy how his timing works out on all that stuff, man. But no, that's good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, man. Happy for you guys. Well, very cool, man. Well, you said you have some siblings as well. You guys all hunt and fish, or what was your upbringing that kind of got you into the hunting and fishing space?
Uh, so growing up, my mother, I have a brother and I have a sister, and we all have different dads, and she didn't really raise us. Each of our own grandparents kind of raised us. Uh, so they were, I have siblings, but they were more like cousins growing up. You would kind of go to the other grandparents' house and see them and stuff. Like it was a little weird, but I got through it, and so we weren't like super super close. And now I don't talk to really either one of them. It's just the luck of the draw and how things work out.
Yeah.
But my grandpa, well, my brother's dad, growing up, would invite me over to spend holidays and stuff with him and his parents, which I considered my grandparents growing up, and they always had all these deer on the wall and all these different animals that they had mounted, and I thought it was really cool. And he had taken me and my brother a couple of times, and then my grandfather had taken me a couple of times, but it wasn't anything ever like, oh, I want to go do that again, or let's let's plan a weekend where we go hunt. It was just kind of, I went with him, got excited, and then didn't shoot nothing, didn't see nothing, and then kind of got bored with it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have any interest in it up until, I'd say, about 2017, 2018. I was kind of going through, I was a late teen, going through a lot of things, and I wanted to become more natural with things, such as the foods I eat, the different medications or anything that I'm taking in my body. I just wanted to be more natural. And so I started buying deer meat off of my friends that were hunting. And I was like, man, this stuff is great, and it's organic. I know where it's been fed. I know where it goes to sleep. I know where it drinks water. I don't have to worry about what it's being fed or pumped with. And it just feels
Hmm.
better. And so when I met my wife, her father actually owns a decent little plot. And he let me hunt back there a few times. And before that, I'd hunted on some friends and got a doe or two here or there. But he let me hunt on their property. And I was like, man, there's some good deer back here, because there was cornfields and creeks and hollers and hills. And like, man, there's some good deer back here. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was walking out there, and I mean, I'm not saying you have to dress in camo or use any scent control, but I was walking out there in regular jeans and a black hoodie,
Hmm.
sitting up. And my first deer blind was actually an old couch that they had just taken back there. They were gonna tear it apart and burn the wood out of it, and it was a old L-shaped couch. And I grabbed two sides of it and put it behind me, and then threw one on top, and then threw one of those camo leaf covers from Walmart over the front. And I used
Heck
milk
yeah.
crates as a place to set my gun up on the front. What about three
Heck yeah,
seasons?
dude.
Didn't see anything. Well, I seen a bunch, and it got to the point where I was like kind of shaky on pulling the trigger when I would get one on the crosshair, and I just never really did it. And then some buddies of mine, a good buddy of mine that I worked with at the time, was in a bow hunting, and I'd sat with him a couple of times, and he got me wanting to do it, but I thought it was way too expensive for me to get into or even try with, kids and whatnot. And so I was like, nah, I'll do it one day. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it. It was just not really an upbringing, not really I would say friends,
Hmm.
friends wanting, willing to let me tag along and just learn.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible, man. That's really neat. It's actually, ironically enough, kind of similar to mine. My dad, like he'd talk about hunting, like when he was in high school, and kind of same thing. He just tagged along with friends here and there. Had an uncle that might take him out pheasant hunting one day, or So I kind of heard those little stories here and there. And I remember like I couldn't tell you how old I was. One of my early memories, I remember my dad and my uncles going out on some day and coming home, and we had like pheasants, like they used to soak them in salt water overnight in the fridge. I
Yeah,
remember that, but like I never really went. I don't think. Tag along as a young kid, but my grandpa over at his place, but we were over there, it seemed like every weekend growing up, and he had an old deer rack hanging up in his one of his barns, and he always had this. It was like right when Iowa first, he shot that buck when Iowa like very first opened up deer hunting, like period, like he's back in that era when they started doing actual like license hunts and stuff. And his story was just kind of like an old Daniel Boone level story out there with the the cotton patch and lead ball muzzle loader,
yeah,
the Hawkins style thing, and shooting the deer and you just crawling through tall grass. The story was just awesome, and I always like just loved hearing the story. And then yeah, then I just got old enough one day. I was like, we got cable and or satellite TV or whatever, and I started watching the hunting channel and just really couldn't get enough of it. It was just kind of one of those things that just kind of same thing, just enough someone planted a seed or those little things planted little seeds and eventually it just kind of grew into it. And kind of like you said, you getting out there with friends and stuff, there's just that little bit of exposure over time. That's kind of cool how it evolved and got you into it. And I love the aspect too of like you said, just the natural way of knowing where your food comes from. For me, I
yeah,
think that's one of the biggest things that well, my dad my dad raised me to be a penny pincher, at a heart. So I remember the first deer I ever got, first deer I ever got was with a bow, and we took it to the locker because it was kind of hot, and it was like September, like real early September or October in Iowa, and it was hot. So instead of messing with it on my own, I was like, okay, I didn't know what I was doing, so I took it to the locker and like spent 115 bucks to get like 30 some pounds of sticks or whatever made, and I was like doing the math in my head, and I'm like, I would much rather save that $115 and just do it myself next time. So the next year, we got into shotgun hunting, and the group that we'd go shotgun hunting with, we'd always take a bunch of deer home with us, and they would basically let them hang and freeze in the winter, and then we'd have one big weekend. We'd all get together and learn butchering and do all that. And but now that's like my favorite part of the season, man, is taking it from the field and putting it on my table and packaging it and all the whole thing. I think I enjoy that part just as much as I do hunting it.
yeah. I tell you, what really got me into it was, like I said, a good friend of mine that was bow hunting, and it got my interest a little bit. Uh, he had asked my father-in-law if he had permission to hunt our property, and he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Just let me know when you go back there." And he said, I'm just more interested. He said, I just like hunting. He said, I've got plenty of meat in the freezer. So he killed a doe back there on opening day and called me. And, I live maybe 30 seconds from the gate that we walk through to start our hike. And he was like, hey, man, come outside. So I come outside and he had this doe in the bed. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. He said, yeah, help me real quick. I'm going to back up to this tree over here in your yard. And I've got a hoist and I'm going to hoist it up and we're just going to gut it right here. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so we gutted it right there. And anything he didn't want, he just kind of pitched over to the dogs, and the dogs kind of took off with everything. And he took it home, and then he called me. He got all the meat out, and he called me and was like, hey, where you at? And I said, home. And he said, all right, well, I'll be there in about 5 minutes. And I didn't really know what for, but I was like, okay. Well, he shows up with, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds of ground meat, some tenderloin, some roast, some backstrap steaks, and he was like, everything was already packaged, in the airtight bags. And he
Hmm.
was like, here you go. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, for getting me the connection to let me hunt back here. And I
Wow.
was like, really? And he was like, yeah, man. He said, and every other deer I get, he said, I'll give you one if you just let me hunt back here. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And so, we didn't spend any money on meat for a couple weeks, and I was like, hey, this is pretty nice.
Great. Yeah, definitely a money saver, man. That's for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, and you don't have to spend the time to go harvest it either. Not that that's a problem, but when you
No, but
got somebody else
I
that's
didn't have to
helping
do
you.
any of it. And then he was like, yeah, if the next one I get, you got to gut. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, heck yeah. Very cool. So he's the guy that showed you how to process and all that stuff eventually, or
Yeah, he's a big hunter, big hunter. Coyotes, deer, turkey. His dad was like a semi-pro fisherman. He duck hunts, dove hunt. He's everything.
very cool. Heck yeah, man. Great guy to learn from.
Oh yeah, for sure. Very knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, definitely. So how about you? You obviously you got a deer with your bow, and you've got a few. It sounds like with a gun. You dabbled into turkeys or waterfowl or anything else yet, or just sticking with deer?
Not yet. I've been turkey hunting with some friends a couple of times, and yeah, I don't really like turkey hunting all that much. I enjoy turkey meat, but I don't really. I like to deer hunt, and when I'm not deer hunting, I like to fish. If I'm gonna be, partaking in an outdoor sport, uh, I think fishing's about as much as I do, other than deer hunting. I would like to do a little bit more, but I haven't really found anything that kind of sparked my interest.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a little bit to. It was kind of same with I just slowly got into other things. Just
Yeah.
one, ran into some guys at school that wanted to go waterfowl hunting one day, so I went with them, and I went a few times for waterfowl, and it was just so slow. Like you get out there early, toss all this, you do all this work, and like the birds just don't come in. You're kind of like the same thing. You just get bored so quick. You're like, I don't know if it's worth it. But then that first time you ever have like a group of geese or something just try to land right on top of you, and then it just blows up. You're like, okay, I get it. So that got me into
Yeah.
that, but it's definitely a slow entrance into it for sure.
I guess the new age it does kind of spark my interest with like duck hunting. It looks like, I've been told it's fairly expensive, but the same guy that helped me out with that deer, he lives, I don't know, probably about 45 minutes to an hour away. And when we were working one day, we were talking about siblings, and I said my brother's name, and he was like, "That's your brother?" I was like, "Yeah, how do you know him?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I met him out on the river when we were duck hunting in West Tennessee or something." And I was like, "Wow, that's weird."
That's
But
wild. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah, that's a duck hunting's kind of a weird one. I I guess my opinion, it's kind of as expensive as you allow it to be. It's either shotgun and steel shot, whatever cheap box of steel shot you can find, is about all you need, for it. Besides, the duck stamp and stuff. So your licensing, just make sure you got the right state and federal stamps. But beyond that, if you have spots to go that birds are going to be, it can be really cheap. You don't have to go into all the decoys and stuff. And but my first several times, it was just that, basically jump shooting ponds or whatever, where guys we had permission to go hunt different ponds and things like that. And then it just kind of eventually I bought some decoy. I actually had a buddy that worked for I can't remember the sporting goods, Gander Outdoors, I think, back there in Iowa. One of my buddies I was going to community college with, and they had a huge like blowout sale for employees on some duck decoys, and so
hmm
he had like 10 boxes of I don't know if they were 6 packs or 12 packs. I think they were a dozen sets of a dozen. But I bought a dozen ducks for $25, and so like it was just dirt cheap. I'm like, I'm not gonna not do that. So
yeah,
got now I have some decoys, and being a military family, I've got some buddies that they get deployed and they can't take their hunting stuff with them, or it's going to sit around forever. So I've got some goose decoys now that guys gave me, and some silhouettes. But yeah, it's basically if you have a set of muck boots and a shotgun, I think you're about as set up as you want to be. And then usually guys that are really into it, if you end up kind of going with guys that know how to do it, they've got all the gear, and they're just like, yeah,
yeah,
jump in, make sure you got your license.
yeah.
So no, very cool, man. That's awesome. Well, what got you into? You always been a saddle hunter since you've started in the bow world, or have your first ground
Uh,
blind was an old
Believe it or
burnt couch?
not, let me uh let me take a quick peek real quick, and I will tell you some details on that.
All right.
But no, I've not always been a saddle hunter. I recently just this season was like, yeah, I think I want to saddle hunt. And so I didn't really have a ton of gear. I didn't really have a whole lot of anything. And I had a buddy that was like, I've got this extra bow. I got a new one if you want to use it for the season. And I was like, yeah, that'd be wonderful. He's like, you just have to sight it in. And it's been some years since I shot a bow. And so I was like calling him like, hey, how do I sight this thing in? He was kind of walking me through it, and I'd ordered I'd ordered some arrows and a stabilizer and a quiver and set up the arrows with some decent little broadheads on them.
Yeah.
But my saddle, actually, I ordered it and it was delivered October 26th. Up until that point, I had never been in a
No
saddle in my
way.
life.
That's amazing.
To be honest with you, up until that point, I've sat in deer like tree stands, but I had never hunted off the ground and successfully harvested anything.
Okay.
And so that kind of got me a little bit more addicted just to how fast everything happened.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. That's insane. Yeah, there's no better way to get you like locked into something than having that kind of success right out of the gate. You just bought your saddle, taught yourself how to climb, and then here it is. Well, you did you shoot that deer? Was that the end of October or was that November?
Yeah, I believe so. I will double check on that, but it was I think it was
Me-
right at the very end of October, and it might have been early November.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
remember when you posted that, but either way, that's a few weeks, man. That's insane.
November 6th.
10 days. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is incredible. So I guess walk me through that whole bit. So number one, being mobile hunting, uh, we don't have any deer partners on this podcast outside of like Dead Nuts Outdoors, 2D Target Company, and Lightsfire Outdoors, my company. But so feel free to talk about whatever gear, man. What saddle did you go with? And being that fresh out of it, I've kind of got to know like what was your research timeline like? What made you decide on what gear you got? Because then you had to learn it quick when you got it.
Okay, so just a little background. From high school until 2022, I think, I was climbing communication towers. So I was already comfortable in a harness and ropes, being up high and relying on my gear. So that I think that's what a lot of people that I talk to or their fear is. They're like, oh, well, I'd rather just stick with my tree stand and my harness and my tether, or I'll stick with a ground blind. So I was already kind of comfortable just with the whole saddle idea, anyways. And the guy I was talking about I worked with, that's when he come over to climb with me. He was so quick of a learner in a harness and ropes because he had been saddle hunting, and so he kind of already had an idea on how the gear worked and stuff. But I got to scrolling on TikTok and looking up some saddle videos and looking up on YouTube, and the next thing I know, my whole For You page and whole recommended on YouTube is saddle hunting, and every now and then those climber videos would come up with the two-piece little climber set, and I was like, nah, I don't like that. I want to, the saddle stuff looks really cool. I'm gonna give that a
Yeah.
try. And so I basically didn't have anything, and I ordered the saddle, come with a platform and come with a tether, and it also come with uh, my lineman's rope. But the saddle is a XOP saddle.
Okay.
It's like a base model. It's super light. It doesn't have a whole lot of gadgets or gizmos on it. Like it's just a base saddle, and the platform is a mutant platform, and it's a little bit heavier than I was expecting, but it's not terrible. As a matter of fact, here's the I know they're not going to be able to see it, but here's the XOP saddle
Yeah.
that I got. It's very,
Uh-huh.
very lightweight, pretty easy to function with. Something I did add
Mhm.
was my buddy 3D prints, and so I had
Cool.
these little hooks put on there. I got two
Mhm.
of them on the back of my saddle where I'm able to carry my platform right here, and then I can use gear ties or carabiners or whatever to tie my sticks to my side if I'm wanting to move. I haven't really moved a whole lot, but I've moved just enough. Like I get pretty antsy. I'll sit somewhere and I won't see deer for a couple sits, and I'm like, all right, well, I got them on camera over here, or I pulled up one day and they were over here, so I'm gonna move my stuff, and I get
Yep.
really antsy about it. But yeah, man, I everything I have other than a couple things I bought from Walmart was Amazon special. I went
Yeah.
not as cheap as I could go, but I went as budget friendly, but as functionally safe as possible. And I'd done about 2 weeks of just pure research, downtime at work or after work or late night, just research constantly, and found the best deal I could find on one. Uh,
Hmm.
I know they're like a lot of people are, they say don't go with the cheaper stuff. It shows in the build quality, or I'll take my safety over a few dollars. Well, it's like they sell thousands of saddles every year, and reviews are amazing. Uh, an aluminum platform is an aluminum platform. I don't care how many holes or how big you make it. Like a ratchet
Right.
strap's a ratchet strap. They're all going to do the same. I get there's going to be a little bit more quality with, the higher end products, maybe a little bit more comfortability or lighter weight. If something's made of a lesser amount of aluminum, or when they get into the carbon sticks and stuff. But I didn't really see a huge deal. I just kind of went for price point. I wasn't trying to
Mhm.
spend $1,000 to harvest $200 worth of meat. You
Exactly
know,
right.
and
Yeah.
I
Yep.
wasn't even sure if I was going to get a deer this year. Um, and then I went with the Pambo Foda 30-inch climbing sticks.
Okay.
I do not recommend them. They're about $100.
Okay.
The only reason I don't recommend them is where they are 30 inches, they have the 3 steps,
Yeah.
and the latching point for the strap is on in between the top and middle step. And
Ooh.
so if you're coming down and your hand is on the bottom rung, it comes out from the tree some. Not a ton, but it enough to I don't really like it. However, I went with the 30-inch sticks because I'd done my math up, and I could get higher with three 30-inch sticks than I could four 18-inch sticks.
Hmm.
And I bought like a $15 aider. I don't even know the brand of it. It's just a cheap little aider to go on the bottom one.
Hmm.
And yeah, everything else. I bought a backpack. It was made by Bliss Wheel, and it carries. Right now, I've got my bow attached to it, but when I don't have my bow in it, it'll carry platform and sticks and saddle, and everything I need fits in the bag. It's kind of bulky, but I can carry everything in one trip. And
Yep.
I had never been in a saddle until the day me and my buddies, we were at work. We called up a dude and we were like, "Hey, can we bow hunt this property?" And it was like right in the middle of town, like 80 acres, but it was like no one was supposed to be on it. Part of it was a cattle
Yeah.
lot, and he was like, yeah, as long as you bow hunt." He's like, you can kill a big buck, leave all the little ones, just try to take out some of the doe if you can." And we were like, "All right, thanks, man, that'd be wonderful."
Cool.
And we met up after work one day, and they hung their tree stands, and I went and found a tree that I thought I liked. I was showing them how to put the sticks up as I was learning how to put the sticks up. Got everything set, and it didn't really wasn't really much more than that. And I had a couple sits in it. I wasn't The reason I chose where I chose was every time we had pulled up to the spot, we had always seen deer standing there. So I chose a tree that was like 30 yards out.
Hmm.
And after I had a couple of sits, I didn't see no deer there. And I was like, well, this is kind of discouraging. They've been here every day that we've been here. And
Yeah.
so I moved across the shooting lane to another side and had a couple sits there. I got comfortable taking the gear up and down, taking it off, putting it back on. And I seen a couple deer a little far out of distance. Some of them were on the other side of like a fence, and I wasn't really trying to shoot and hit the fence. So I was kind of eyeballing it, and then I decided to go check out some cell cams at Walmart,
Hmm.
throw up some cell cams because I was just blindly going in there on where I seen them, and I was like,
Right.
I need to pinpoint some of these movements, and we started looking for some trails and scrapes, and we found some, and I put up a camera. I put up two cameras over there. Didn't really catch anything on the first one, so I kind of moved it, and I found a spot that I really really liked. I'm not going to say the tree was dead or alive, but it wasn't in great shape. But I was like, this is the tree. I know this
But
for a fact. This is the tree. And had a couple sits in it, seen some doe closer to dark. Wasn't really interested in shooting them. I was really wanting. We had caught this. We caught my deer on camera twice, and we were like, I know for a fact he's still in here. And it's early. I know it's the rut, but it's early, and I think he's still around. And I had moved to this tree, and I had a beautiful shooting lane. I was right next to a bedding area. I was next to a. I was probably about 150 yards off of a fence that I knew they were coming across from a eating grounds. I know they were coming in there and kind of walking, and we were under a power line grid, so it was kind of open
Oh.
all the way out. And
Mm-hmm.
I was right next to that bedding area. Well, I put up my trail cam behind where my stand was and got deer after deer after deer after deer. And I woke up and my buddy was like, "Hey, do you wanna hunt after work?" I was like, "Yeah, man, sure. I'll grab my stuff and I'll load it in the vehicle. And after work, we'll just go get dressed in the shop and then we'll head off." And all day I was just feeling antsy. I was like, "Man, I just can't wait to get out there. Can't wait to get out there and get a sit. Even if I don't see nothing, I just can't wait." And time had just changed. And so it was getting darker an hour earlier. So the deer were kind of moving a little different. And 250 rolls around. And I'm like, "All right, man, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm just feeling good about today. I don't know. I'm just feeling good about it. Are you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I guess so, man. I'm feeling as good as I can."
You're like, no,
And
I'm feeling real good.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm just feeling real good about today." And we got to talking about it. I was like, he said something about he always prays before he goes up into his stand. And I was like, "Yeah, I always end up praying once I get up in the saddle because I'm too antsy. So I get up in there and I get settled in, and I'm like, okay, I probably need to pray a little bit, make sure I go home safe, and
Yeah.
uh, maybe God will allow me to harvest a creature and I'll be able to take some food home." And I'm texting him. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm fixing to hit this little, the little dough bleak cans.
Yeah.
You turn them over." He's like, "Hey, I'm fixing to hit one of these. I'll just let you know if I see anything or hear anything." And I was like, "All right, cool." He's probably 80 to 90 yards away, but we're in two different shooting lanes. And he said, I texted him and I said, "Did you do it?" And he was like, "Yeah, did you not hear it?" And I said, "No." And I looked down at my phone and he said, "There's a." I actually just texted him and I said, "Man, if I see a mature doe," I said, "I'm taking her today." And he texted back and said, "Do not shoot the doe. There is a buck chasing a doe your way right now." And all I seen was, "Do not shoot the doe." And I looked down and I was like, "Why would he not want me to shoot the doe?" And about that time, I put my phone in my chest pack and I turn to my left and I see the doe running down this trail. She comes up under my tree, rubs up against it, and turns and goes in the woods behind me. And I was like, maybe that buck, I don't know, maybe he just didn't, I don't know what he saw. Here comes the buck.
This episode is powered by Dead Nuts Outdoors, makers of the most lifelike, lightweight, and weatherproof 2D archery targets in the world. That's right, I said 2D. We're talking full-size animals that bring the hunt to your backyard. Whether you're dialing in before the season or just burning daylight with your bow, Dead Nuts Targets makes practicing fun, training on full-size animals to ensure every rep in the backyard converts to success on your trips to the field. Built to last, easy to haul, compatible with any backstop, and 100% made in the USA, Dead Nuts Outdoors is a proud supporter of our veterans, investing in conservation and rooted in building a better, more confident community of hunters every step of the way. They are proud supporters of the Prayin' and Slayin' Podcast Network, and you can get 10% off your Dead Nuts targets by using the code Prayin' and Slayin' at checkout. That's Prayin' and Slayin' at your checkout or visiting the link in the show notes. Dead Nuts is helping us all hit the spot, not the dot. Hit it dead nuts. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Just trotting down the trail. And I got to shaking a little bit, got a little antsy, got a little nervous. And I thought he was going to take the same loop as she did. So I grabbed my bow off the hanger and I drew back. And at this point, he's right below me, and I'm like, I don't know how to take that shot exactly. I haven't quite, learned that one. And I was like, well, I'll give him a second. And he goes out into the grass field in front of me, and he runs off to my right and gets a broadside at about 20 yards. I think I got him at like 21 yards is where I first had him. And I draw back this bow and I bring it around my tree because it's a bad side shot. And I look down and my feet are shaking on this platform, and I'm shaking so much on my hands that I end up just, instead of leaning in the saddle, I end up just standing on this platform and tightening my saddle up a little bit. And I pull out my rangefinder and my hands are shaking, and I finally got him at 21 yards. And I was like, okay. So I put him on the 20 pin and I shoot. And keep in mind, the bow that my buddy has let me borrow for the season, it's a little bit older. It's a Hoyt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a little bit louder of a thud in the strings. So
Yeah.
I was always worried when I was practice shooting that I was going to scare something off. Um, I took my shot at 21 yards and I thought I hit this deer and I missed. And he jumped about 10 yards and stood there broadside staring at me. And I don't think he ever really made a connection that I was there. I don't think I was ever made. I think he just kind of was looking my general direction. He done a couple
Mm-hmm.
stomps and he turned his head where he was completely broadside. And I pulled my rangefinder back up, shaking even more this time. Keep in mind, I had to put another arrow in.
Yep.
I had to put another arrow in, which I was already shaking more for that. And still standing at broadside, I pulled back and I put my rangefinder on him at 35 and I shot. And when I did, I seen the immediate blood and I seen him take off running through the woods in front of me. I was not worried about where he was going, how far he was going to run. I hung my bow up, and the first thing I did was call my buddy in the stand right beside me, and I was like, "He's down, he's down, he's down." He said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "No, he's down."
Just new.
Yeah, and he said, "All right, well, I'll pack up and I'll meet you down. We'll meet in between stands." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I've always been told to kind of wait around, let the deer do its thing and then go look. I can't tell you how fast I was packed up and down these sticks.
Right.
I was nearly to his stand before he was down, and he's in a
Awesome.
normal ladder stand. He's in a normal hang on ladder stand. So I mean, all he had to do was grab his bow and put his backpack on.
That's insane, man. That is so cool. So did you miss him on the first shot?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I missed him at 20 yards,
Okay.
and he stayed there for me to get a second arrow in.
That's crazy, dude. Do you like reflecting back on it? Do you happen to know like what caused you to miss? I mean, you ranged him, you had him at 21. You said you put your 20-yard
Uh,
pin on him. You remember that?
yeah. So the first time I used that bow in a hunt this year, well, right before the first time I took it out, I literally took off of work at like 1 o'clock and went and sighted it in, and then went to hunt at 3. And so
Okay.
I hadn't shot it or anything, and I shot it maybe I shot maybe 25 arrows through it to sight it in, and I got the 20 and a 30 pin down. And my aunt was telling me that I went to her house to sight it in because she lives close to my work, and her husband used to hunt quite a bit, and I kept hitting low, and she was like, "Yeah, because when you release, your front hand's dropping instead of holding steady." And so I kind of focused on holding my hand steady, and I was hitting target after target after target after that. I imagine that's all that happened there was that I was so shaky and so nervous that my front hand just dropped out whenever I pulled back and let go.
Yeah.
Also, I I held I held that for probably I'd say a good 60 seconds before I shot the first one.
That'll
The
do it.
second arrow that I let go of, there's no way my sight was on him for more than 2 seconds.
You're ready to re up. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You got the hard part out of the way. Now you're back. Now you're comfortable. Okay, let's go. Now it's just
Yeah,
time to make a
yeah.
shot.
And
Yep.
he ran through the woods in front of me. Like I said, I didn't see him. Me and my buddy met up down on the ground, and I was like, I was shaking, and he was dapping me up. He was like, that's awesome, congratulations, man. I hope we find him. And I was like, we look over, and he's just laying there like 40 yards, edge of the wood line,
No.
and I was super super pumped about it. And we went over just to check, make sure everything, that he was dead, and he was good. And we were looking around to see where I actually hit on him, and it went left shoulder, and it went right through the heart and right out the other side.
Dang. Perfect
So
shot.
yeah, perfect. Couldn't ask for better.
Heck yeah, man. That's so cool. Yeah, it's I can't imagine. I haven't shot anything out of a saddle yet. I haven't even seen a deer while I've been. I take that back. I had one opportunity. Um, I've seen one deer while I've been in a saddle so far. I just got into it this past year. But yeah, I can't. That's my whole thing is like I know it's going to be harder that first time you shoot, just because, like you said it earlier, most guys are when they get into saddle hunting, it's so different and so new for them, it's kind of uncomfortable. And so there's just you're tense the whole time. You're trying to tell your brain to trust your gear and trust, all that stuff. And so there's a lot going through my head when I'm up there. But the more I climb, I'm comfortable in the gear now. Now it's a matter of making that shot. So, but I can imagine too being the way that happened and you had that buck show up and all this anticipation too, because you've been feeling good all day. So there's a lot like I imagine that adrenaline rush a little bit harder on a day like that that leads
Oh
up to
yeah,
it.
it was. I was super excited just to get it down. I was super excited to be able to do that and be able to harvest anything really, but to be able to harvest a decent buck like that. But yeah, it was. I don't know, just to be able to do it on my own and not have anybody. Like I had some, two good friends that helped me out and showed me the ropes and whatnot. But they didn't, don't saddle. And so after they seen me, they were like, "Man, I'd really like to saddle hunt myself, to be honest." And so I've kind of got them into it. They got me into bow hunting, and now I've got them into wanting to have a saddle.
Yeah, I bet.
And I don't know, it's one of them things where it felt really good to do it on my own and not have, a grandpa or a dad over my shoulder to be like, I took him to this spot. Like it was just one of them things. We got the permission. I
Yep.
built the setup, and I was able to harvest. And then my friend that was with me, he's been hunting his whole life, and his dad got some, trophy deer on his wall. And we went to his house and used his barn. He's got a hoist and everything, and he showed me how to do everything. We field dressed it where we were, and then we drug it up on the truck and went home and got all the meat and stuff out of it.
So, and you said you were talking about the tree where you're like, that's the tree. One thing I wanted to ask, did you like go in the first time, set up? Guys, some guys I see like will leave their sticks on the tree. Do you do that, or did you pack the whole thing in every time?
I left the first time. I left everything on the tree, and I left it on for about 3 sits, and then I moved to a different spot, and I took everything in and out for a couple of sits, and then the last tree that I found where I actually got the buck, um, took everything in and I set it up, and I left I left my sticks up and took my platform down because I have sticks at my property where I set up. So I was like, okay, well I'll just use those and take my platform back and forth. The only problem, I would like to be a little bit more mobile. I guess I would have to buy more expensive, lightweight sticks, but the ones I've got are fairly heavy. So unless I'm going to be there for a while or it's a new property, I'm probably not packing in these sticks. They're kind of clinky. I guess I could secure them to be a little bit quieter. There's there's a teeth in the middle as well, and so they don't really sit on the
Oh,
bottom of the pack like I would like to. And if I put them on the outside of the pack, the platform doesn't really sit well.
sticks are kind of the biggest pain on my end too when I'm setting up. I've noticed like hanging them off the side. Yeah, there's just I've got four that I've got of the 18 inchers, like you said, and the way they stack out, it's kind of that awkward thing that's just hanging off you just a little too much. Where I got into it was in Maryland, and everything's greenbrier and thick, nasty stuff. So like the biggest pain was the sticks trying to get caught on everything.
Yeah, taking them in and stuff isn't a huge problem. I mean, where I'm hunting, there's a lot of thickets, and so the briars and stuff. Honestly, they catch more in my bag and my pants than they do my actual
Yeah.
sticks. But I haven't really got a super lightweight setup that I want to just carry in and out somewhere. But also, I don't hunt public land. I know some people are gonna shame on that. I only hunt private, but there's no public land available for me for 2.5 hours away, and so I would like to have that cool public land experience, but I don't have enough knowledge on the area that's even remotely close to me on where to hunt. What I'm after. What spots are overhunted and not. Uh, I'm just really, really fortunate that I do live in a smaller community, and so if I want to hunt some private property, I just go knock on somebody's door and be like, "Hey, is there anybody hunting this, or does anybody have a lease?" And it's either a yes or a no. And so,
Yeah.
I've got totaled up, I've probably got 150 to 200 acres that I can hunt within a 15, 20-minute drive of my house.
That's amazing, man. That's cool. And I grew up in a small community as well, and it was kind of the same thing. Either, my parents just happened to know some people that had property and knew that I'd gotten into shooting a bow, and it was either kind of generically offered, hey, if he ever needs a place to go, let him know he can come out to my place. I'll show him the place. And then same thing, you could usually ask somebody. If you didn't have permission, you go up, knock on a door, and at that time, in '90s, the farmers in Iowa were like, "Dude, I don't kill them all. Like, we don't want those deer out there eating our corn, man. So yeah, have at it, please. Thank God there's somebody here to hunt my property." And then, now fast forward into, like 2020-ish and a little bit before that, even like leases started really becoming king and things like that. So it made the private game a little bit tougher, but still in those small communities, there's still definitely permission to be had. And definitely nothing to shake a stick on anybody that's doing the public land thing. That's cool. But I would almost, I'd be curious at this point, knowing how many people just hammer the idea that it's, you got to be public, you got to be mobile. I'd be curious if some of that doesn't come from either people that truly just don't have permission, or maybe they haven't gone out to ask it. So, I guess, do you have any
Yeah,
tips for anybody looking to maybe have just the confidence to go up and door knock for the first time? I mean, you're obviously experienced with it.
it's all about how you carry yourself, really. Like I don't go up dressed in camo. I don't go up dressed in, and I'm not going to say you can't wear beat up clothes if that's all you got, because I've been there. But I definitely walk up in an approachable manner. I park in the driveway. I sit in the car for a little bit, maybe like a minute or two, just to maybe let somebody come to the door rather than go knock. And generally, the people I ask are people that I've met within my community. But if it's door to door, like, hey, I see on Onyx you've got 130 acres, and I see you just logged it, and it's like, hey man, I might pull up, knock on the door, and be like, hey, is so and so here? And they're like, yeah, who are you? I explain who I am, and I'm like, hey, I was just curious. I'm new into bow hunting, or I'm new into rifle hunting, whatever it is, and I was just curious if you hunted your property, or if anybody hunted your property, and or if you'd be willing to let me. But I just try to be as presentable and as nice about things. If it's a no right off the gate, it's okay. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate your time. Um,
Mhm.
it's harder for a lot of people to go up and just knock on doors. I get that. I don't know. I've always been an open person when it comes to people. I've always been able to go up and talk to anybody, so that kind of helps that.
I agree. Carrying yourself here. Some guys I've seen it. It looks like more like a salesman coming up to knock, so it puts people's guards up, or and the same thing if they don't know you. So it
Yeah,
definitely helps. Like you said, some of the people you may actually know a little bit, or at least they would be familiar with who you are and that kind of thing. That definitely helps. But
yeah,
um, and I definitely think the way you ask, like you said, just it's be straightforward, be to the point, because people don't like it's just like a salesman, like get to your point, man. Like what are you here for? Especially if they kind of got their guard up already, but do it in a polite way.
yeah.
And I like how you make sure you check a few
Which
boxes too beforehand. Like do you hunt first and foremost? Does anybody else hunt here? And then the thing that I used to like there was one piece of property that I used to hunt growing up, and the guy would have me come out and do hay work with him. So he'd be doing square bales, and every summer that was kind of like my way to earn my opportunity to hunt his property a few times a year. Was going out and helping him in the summer with his hay baling and stuff like that. So from early on, I guess one thing that carried with me when I got into the point as more of an adult or college and asking people when I would go door knock is asking them how I can earn the privilege of hunting their property. If or is it possible for me to earn that privilege to hunt, here, just to kind of put it out there too up front. Like I'm not afraid to work for it if that's something, but it would be a privilege for me to do this, and I understand that. And is there a way that I could earn that? And that seemed to, especially with the older generation, I noticed that seemed to go a long way. You can kind of just see it in their face, like okay, like it's a different. How you ask is a little bit is important too.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm I'm not at the point yet where I would pay anybody for a lease, but if they want work in return for something, or I'll do my best to, I'm always pack in, pack out. You'll never know I'm even here. Um, I would never put cameras on someone's land if they said, please don't put cameras up, or maybe if they wanted some trails throughout the woods, kind of straightened up and make some actual trails. Uh, I'd be willing to do that, or, I'd be willing to work for, whatever they really need done. Um,
Hmm.
Nothing too crazy, but like I said, I'm not in the market to pay for a lease. If I got to pay for a lease and somebody else can have the deer, I try my best to hunt as much free as I possibly can.
Yeah, yeah, man, you and me both. It's a new world. We're stationed in Texas right now, and the idea of pay to play for whitetail deer just seems so strange to me. It's like, but that's just the reality. There's so much private property, and that is like the expectation down here is that it's that way. It's just the culture of it, and it is what it is,
Yeah,
and people pay for animals, and it's the whole game. But it's been the toughest thing for me to try to wrap my head around. And but there's the same effect. It's like, I just like you, the reason I like to hunt is I like to know where my meat came from, and I like my meat to be affordable. And it goes into my freezer, and that's really what it's all about at the end of the day for kind of what I do it for. So adding extra cost to it it really detracts from the concept of getting out there and doing it. And so I'm right there with you, man. It's like if the more cost that gets associated with it, and I'm not knocking people that have the money to go do a lease, or if that's how they get their hunting in, great. But for me, it's a different level. It's a
Yeah,
different
I mean, if that's how
style
you
of
do it,
what I'm in for.
if you've got
Yeah.
the extra time and the extra income to put in something like that, that's wonderful. I'm glad you do. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, but I'm
Yeah.
happy that you can. To each their own, and how they spend their time and money and hobbies. They just everybody dives a little bit different direction. Uh, and I'm cool with that. Like I said, I can't afford it. I don't really want to be forking out the extra money to be paying for something.
Yeah, man.
I've got a whole new track now. I've moved one of my cameras back to my father-in-law's land, and I've spotted what I think is a lot larger deer. It's an 8 point on camera twice now, and now I'm obsessed with. I'm out on this piece of property every other day. I just can't seem to quite get him to come around. I've seen him once in person, and he had so many does around that he was not interested in me and my grunt calls or my rattle bag, and he was not. He didn't care about it at all. I had a couple of his does run my way, but for the most part, he just kept on grazing and kept on going.
Yeah, man, that's wild. So I guess in Tennessee, what's your guys' tag situation? Do you have to buy tags individually, or do you
Uh,
buy a license and you get so many deer per?
so if you're a resident, you buy your license and you get two antler deer per season, and it's 3 doe a day is your limit. And so
Okay.
a lot of people, a lot of the mature bucks, they don't get killed until rifle season starts late November. You got a couple
Okay.
archery guys, you got a couple of old heads, and some guys that just really like muzzleloader season. Uh, and the archery guys will hunt velvet and stuff, and then you'll have the juvenile weeks and or weekends or whatnot. But for the most part, a lot of your mature bucks are still running around, well into the rut. A lot of people don't bow hunt and muzzleload, but they use traditional rifles, and so that season doesn't start. I think it's November 21st here.
Okay.
So if you can, what I've learned is that just from recent experience and watching my friends the past few years, if you can learn to bow hunt, you can get the good deer before they get picked off for the beginning of rifle season.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you got a lot longer time frame to get after them, and
Yeah,
a little bit
100%.
different habits at that time too. Yeah, because like you
Yeah,
kind of
for sure.
talked with yours, it sounded you patterned them based off of okay, it's food to bed or water, so you kind of knew it's
Yeah,
probably a little bit easier at that time too. They're not getting all pulled around with those and kind of being more unpredictable. Even though it's a great time to hunt them. And once guns start going off, I'm sure just like everywhere else during rifle season, those deer get a little bit more wary and they move faster through openings and things like that too. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. After rifle season here starts, it's hard to get a good buck on camera or to see one at all unless it's uh, early morning and you're driving down the road and you're looking out into a field. You may see one standing eating, but other than that, like it's super hard after the rifle season because I mean, opening day, if you've got single pane windows, all you hear around our area is gunshot after gunshot after gunshot. I mean, people are just dropping deer left and right, and that's just like
for
I said,
sure.
smaller community. It's a definitely.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say majority of people hunt here, but quite a bit of people hunt where I'm at. There's a lot of land. There's a lot of good deer. I would say 80% of the people around me, they just like to fill freezers. They're not after trophy bucks, but if
Hmm.
one walks out, they'll shoot it. You know.
Yeah. Yep. Just like me. That's kind of how I am. If I got a tag in my pocket, my first mission is always the freezer. But hey, if a good buck comes out, he's not off the list either. So heck yeah.
I'm holding out on the does until I can figure out this 8 point I'm after right now. If I can pinpoint him and get him and tag out before rifle season even starts, then I'll worry about filling the freezer. Right now, I'm just on a chase for him because I don't think there's no way he lasts through rifle season.
No, I'd be right there with you, man. You got a good buck, and you got him at least showing up on camera here and there. It puts that chase in you. So, and you got the mobile gear to get after him and kind of go right into his bedroom too, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's what I do enjoy is that if I do want to move, I can. Like the first day I sat in a tree uh, for 4 hours one morning and I took everything down. I went to a Veterans Day parade, and then I moved all my stuff when I come back from the parade to a different spot, and then sat the afternoon in that spot. So I mean, it definitely is like
you can kind of, I'm not so worried about finding shooting lanes. I can always find something that I can, I've got, I don't have to worry about getting everything set up and getting up there and being like, oh, well, now I can't see this side or my back side or this side of the blind side. I can always move my platform around the tree and or swap trees. I can be up and
Yeah.
down. I can have everything down off my tree in less than 10 minutes, and I can have everything back up on my tree in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, it's such an incredible style of hunting, man, and like you said, it opens so many doors because there's places as well, and I just got done being stationed in Maryland, and out there there was some decent public spots and some really big bucks on them, but there's a lot, just so much stuff was so thick, you just really couldn't anticipate what you were going to be able to see until you truly climbed a tree and were like, okay, this one works or this one doesn't work. But just like you said, it's shoot back down the tree, jump to the next one, and try that, or you can kind of get your vantage point and go, okay, actually 30 yards that direction, I need to go find a tree because that's better. The mobile hunting world is a whole different, and it's definitely different than the climber stand, because that's what I did have. Thinking that was before saddle hunting really became a thing, and when I got my climber. But the hard part with the climber is that tree's got to pretty much be perfectly straight for the most part. I mean, that
Yeah,
limits your
straight up, no
options quite a
branches.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at, when I was trying to choose between saddle and the climber, but uh, climbing towers for so long, and that's all the only job I'd ever had before public works was climbing towers, as an adult. Um, and so I was really, really drawn to the whole saddle and ropes and uh, the way everything works with that. It just felt more at home than sitting in a
yeah.
climber. And I really, after that in tree stands, and I've been in climbers, and I don't really, I don't know. I just much prefer the saddle.
Yeah, man, and yeah, I think I'd be curious how many guys in that mobile hunting community are in that same boat you are, because when it's something you've already been familiar with, like, and it doesn't seem like there'd even be another thing that would go through your head that seems as good of an option.
No.
Especially just getting comfortable with that gear like you have, and we had when we got to Maryland, actually, there was a tree in the backyard that needed to get felled by the landowner, and he had a guy. Uh, they had a crew that came out, and they just watching them go up and down that tree all day, like it was kind of amazing, like how fast they are and how quick. But they do it day in, day out. But just climbing trees with ropes, man, it was kind of crazy to watch, and that's kind of really what got my gears from. Like, okay, there's definitely something to that. Um, but uh, but yeah, man, that's it's pretty incredible. I know you got some family stuff to get to here. Uh, so if I'd like to ask you a couple quick questions here, as far as number one, if you had, now that you've
Yeah,
done
for
it, you've
sure.
got a deer with a bow and you've got a deer in the saddle, what's your top bow hunting saddle tip that you could give somebody that you've learned from this hunt?
Well, I will say the only time that I know for a fact that I prayed for an animal for me to harvest before I went in and as I was sitting in a tree is the only time I've ever killed anything out of that saddle. Um,
Very true.
times
Yeah,
are
man.
times are tough right times are tough right now, and we're dealing with some hardships in life, and we've prayed about some things, and I got into this, and it just happened for me. Number two is you got to trust your gear. Trust your gear. I can. Most people that get into it won't do what I can do in a saddle, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn there, but I'll I can put my feet. I can be completely horizontal against the tree if I need to for some odd reason, but um, I'm completely comfortable, and I don't recommend this to anybody, but I'm completely comfortable with detaching from a lineman's belt and going to a tether, and I trust in myself, and uh, without having to do all the everything and all at once. And like I said, don't recommend that for everyone, especially new climbers. Use your lineman's belt until you're tethered off. Sit on your tether, make sure everything's good before you disconnect. An advantage for me is I don't feel like I necessarily have to do all those things. If I'm coming in the dark or coming down in the dark, completely different story. But broad daylight,
Hmm.
I'm feeling great. I trust myself enough to know that I'm comfortable setting up, which allows me to get in faster, quieter, uh, honestly more careful because I'm not dealing with so many different ropes. A lot of guys in the new stage, the whole idea of having two or three different ropes set up on you can get kind of confusing on what to unhook and what not to unhook.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
trust your gear for sure.
Yeah, man. No, that's huge, and know your gear. I think you kind of hit it there too. Just you got guys. It can be very
Yeah,
confusing because it's not like even a climber that can kind of be a little bit confusing. But at the end of the day, you're running two pieces of equipment, and sliding your stuff up the tree. But
yeah,
running a saddle, I find myself, that's the one thing with me is like, it's more of the making sure that I trust the gear now, having done it, but like it's the process that's still in my head of like, okay, I repeat a lot of things in my head over and over and over as I'm going up that tree or doing certain things just because I don't have like that perfect rhythm down. But there's a lot of moving parts, and like you said, if you haven't done it, what the 10,000 hour rule or 10,000 climb rule maybe in this world, but yeah, it just that repetition and knowing your gear, knowing where stuff's at, putting it back in the same spot every single time. So it is muscle memory after a certain point. That's huge. That's really huge.
Yeah, and like I said, I definitely had a benefit coming into that climbing because it was 3 to 4 days a week for 5 years, was just up and down towers, harness on, harness off, rappelling, being able to really stretch your limits to work on whatever you need to work on, getting uncomfortable, being uncomfortable doing something. And so like I really, really trusted my gear when I got it. I mean, if 10,000 other people had bought it in the last 2 years and no one had failed because their gear failed them, they failed because of a hunter accident. And I was like, okay, well, as long as I play my card safe, my gear's going to hold me, then I can pretty much move and sit and lean how I want to. And I'm not necessarily worried about anything. So that definitely was a benefit, was that I climbed for so long before using, and a harness is a little bit different, but I mean, the only thing that's different from a harness to or a saddle from my harness is that I had shoulder straps and a chest buckle. That's the
Yeah.
only difference.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, and you said it too on the beginning part there. Pray before you start launching arrows out of, or pray before you get the stand, or pray before you get up there. That's huge. And you touched on it too. And I like to see if guys want to leave the listeners with something good. And yeah, it seems like times get a little bit different and more strange and stuff every single day and faster and faster. But what do you got to leave the people with something good that inspires you or helps you get through each day?
Um, Something that helps me get through each day. I I would like to say that something that gets me through good days and bad days is, you know, God works in mysterious ways, and a lot of people like to pray after success, and they don't like to pray after a downfall or after a slump era. I think you got to pray for all those times, because without those down eras, you don't necessarily appreciate those good days. And a lot of people, they want to thank God that they did this or they got this or they made this or they got this money or this job. They don't want to ever pray about and be thankful for the struggle they had to go through to get here. So I wake up and a little bit of motivation for me is that I try to set stepping stones in my life, and that once I've overcome that stepping stone, I don't want to ever go back past that point. And so it's really, really heartwarming to wake up and be like, yeah, I'm above that. And it might be a long time before I get to the next step, but I'll never be back below that point. And it
Mhm.
just kind of helps me out through my day to know that I'm better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah, man. No, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. Every day you get to wake up, it is better than the day before because it's a new day to start fresh, and that's huge. And then to your point, man, when you get knocked
Absolutely.
down, the thing I've learned in life too is like when things are hard, being thankful for being in that hard thing, and it takes a lot of learning, and a lot of times going through it to figure it out. But when you can find that space where you can be thankful while you're going through those tough seasons and understand that it's like, I like to think about rucking and stuff a lot. I try to do some weighted hikes whenever we go on like family walks or weighted hikes. I toss my weight vest on, but like
Mhm.
you build so much under that pressure, and when things are hard, you're under pressure, and there's a reason that you're there, and there's a reason you're going through it, and there's something that's going to be learned for whatever to your point, so you don't go backwards the next time, most likely because you're going to be stronger because of it. And you never walk out of something tough less strong than you walked into it. It doesn't. It
Yeah,
always seems like it prepares you for that next thing, or maybe there's a reason you're being forced into this pressure cooker because you just got to be better than you are now, and you may not understand that till you come out the other side and you look backwards and like, oh wow, like thank God I went through that because I'm not going to make that choice again, or maybe you get confronted later with something that season taught you. That, you make the right decision this time, or
absolutely.
whatever the case is. So that's huge,
Absolutely.
man. I love that. I love it. Well, Quentin, man, that's what we got for this episode of the Praying and Slaying podcast, brother. And thank you so much for sharing your story. And thank you so much for
Yes,
leaving us
sir. I
that awesome
appreciate you.
inspiration. And the dude, first buck with a bow, first deer with a bow, first time in the saddle, and you've made it happen, dude. You got a lot of uphill climbing from here, I think. So
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm definitely excited for this season, and if it's something you would be interested in, it's something I'm interested in, whether it's the end of this season or whether it's next season. I would love to touch back base and talk about different things that I've seen, that I've learned, that I've experienced, and just retouch with all that. And like I said, I've only been probably maybe 10 sits in a saddle so far, so I'm still very, very, very fresh.
Dude,
So
we'd love to
yeah,
have you back on, man. Absolutely. Well, number one, I have to know how this 8-point turns out if you smack a bigger buck.
oh
So
yeah,
either way, we're going to hear the rest of your season. But yeah, man, absolutely. We'll definitely get you back on as soon as we had a few more hunts under your belt and talk about all the ways you've grown and things you've learned. And hopefully you've got a few more bucks under the belt, or one more buck at least this season. So
yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you for having me on. This is a wonderful opportunity. Last thing I expected was somebody to message me about a podcast after I posted a picture, but that was
but you're the
I
first.
seen that, and I stream, I live stream, but a podcast is a little bit different and in a different world than what I live stream about. For someone to invite me on to a show was just like, that's really cool. That's like, and I was like, my friends, I was like, I think I should do it. And they were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I looked you up, just kind of look at the podcast, see what it was about. And I was like, I listened to one episode and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on there.
Glad you got on there, man. I love that you tuned in to listen and it called to your heart to be here, man, because we absolutely enjoyed having you. It was like, as soon as I read like the 2-sentence thing on your post, I'm like, oh, I'm reaching out to that guy. Absolutely. That sounds like a cool story. So, and you're just as cool as your story, man. I'll tell you that. And it's been awesome getting to know you a little bit and having you on, man. You bet, brother. Awesome, man. Well, go take care of your family, and you bet. Absolutely, dude. We'll have you back on here soon.
Yes, sir. You take care. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, brother. Talk to you later. You bet. Have a good one. Bye.
See you, man.
Well, there you have it, guys. That was Quentin Owen and his story of his first ever deer with a bow, which happened to be an awesome buck. And of course, it was his first deer out of a saddle. What an awesome story, man. And what a great opportunity to get to talk to Quentin. Such a cool dude. I can't wait to have him back on. We'll definitely do a follow-up series with him and learn more about what he's learned through his adventures out in the field and his opportunities to saddle hunt different places and tracking down those big bucks and some different opportunities that he's got to do that. Man, I guess getting into saddle hunting, it's good if you climb communication towers because climbing the tree was about the hardest thing for me to do when I got into saddle hunting, and it definitely is a different ball game. But once you get comfortable, I wouldn't recommend any other type of hunting almost when you're talking about a tree stand. Simply for the universal factor of it. You can almost climb any tree that's out there. But man, I love also what Quentin left us with. The days behind you set you up for the days ahead, and we're always taking steps forward and not a step back. And to be thankful for every opportunity we have, and no matter what the day was, hard or good or easy. The verse that reminds me of is 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18. It says, "Always be joyful, never stop praying, be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus." And the always be joyful part, man, that's something, especially over this last year, man, here in Texas, we've been getting our butts kicked in terms of life and different fun things that we've had to go through. But every day I wake up, I do kind of think the same thing. I look back and be like, holy cow, man, I'm actually thankful for the opportunity to go through some tough things and have opportunities to overcome hard things and walk through hard things, because every time you do it, you come out the other side stronger, you come out the other side smarter, you come out the other side with a little bit more faith than you had the day before. And it's just never an opportunity that we shouldn't be thankful to God that we get to wake up with breath in our lungs and get to see the beautiful creation he has for us and walk forward stronger than we were yesterday. So with that, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. That was Quentin Owen. Congrats, man, on an awesome buck. And as always, everybody, keep praying and slaying.